Guys, what we're about to tell you is, oh man, it's a hell of a story. It's exciting, it's crazy, it's a little emotional, and it's something that we haven't really been able to talk about for almost 3 years now. This happened and it was kind of a life-changing experience. It was a very near-death experience, not almost. It was like, in fact, this guy next to me should be dead.
I actually told the man upstairs that I'd see him soon, have somebody take care of my kids.
Oh man, I'm gonna get emotional way sooner than I thought.
That would have been you taking care of
This, so
You got that tingly too?
son of a man, I'm gonna be a little. So here's the thing: anytime you watch a friend or a family member almost die, it changes the way that you view life. And I've had, my dad died 10, 12 years ago. I've had friends and family die, but my best friend dying in an accident right in front of me was something that I wasn't prepared for. And luckily I didn't have to go through the whole experience of him dying. But what we're about to tell you is basically the story of a moment in our lives where we thought that, Dave was gonna die.
You know what else is hard? Is when you think you're about to die and you watch your friends, the last thing you see is his eyes watching you die. You're like, I hope that's not the last thing he sees.
We both got to experience that together. That was the worst. So here's the story. As you guys know, I'm way into snowcats, like the big resort groomers, the big monster snowcats that move a lot of snow. And for years, we've bought them, taken them up to my cabin here and, driven around, groomed the roads. And we've put these snowcats in some pretty gnarly situations. Climbed up and down some really steep and deep alpine peaks. We basically try to keep winter access open for the snowmobilers and as many people as possible. Well, my cabin is located up near Farmington Peak in Utah here. Farmington Peak is an area that gets closed off every winter. There's a road that goes through in the summertime, and in the wintertime, it's just closed by the Forest Service. And there's a good reason it's closed. It's because it gets drifted over. There's one section of road that kind of goes along a cliffside, and it gets anywhere between 10 and 20 feet of drifting snow. And it's very steep. The road is cut into not even just a hillside, the road's cut into a cliff. So basically the road kind of meanders through, and there's about 500 feet of cliff above it and about probably 1,000 feet of cliff below it. And it's a narrow road, probably only 12 feet wide. And maybe a little bit wider, but in the wintertime, that is the area that is basically the road just disappears, it vanishes, and just turns into a drifted hillside. So we took the snowcats up on January 27th, 2018, and I had just purchased a brand new piston bully snowcat, and I already had.
Nice.
It was very nice.
Yeah.
It was the first time it wasn't brand new. I bought it from the auction, got a great deal on it, and I already had another snowcat. So when we're telling the story, keep in mind we're going to be talking about the piston bully and the Prenoth.
I'm probably going to call it gray one and red one.
Gray one and red one is more realistic. The piston bully was red. It was the new cat. The BR350, the Prenoth, was the gray cat. Gray cat was one that I'd had for a while. Red one was the brand new one that I was excited to drive. So I was driving up the mountain, took my family, Dave's family, all of our kids, everybody, and we went up and we were having a great time driving the snowcats. Now Dave, he doesn't have as much time operating the snowcat as I do because I've been doing this for years. So this was one of his first opportunities to kind of have a cat to himself and learn how to groom and push snow and do all kinds of cool stuff.
I was tearing it up.
You were.
A good way.
Driving a snowcat is it's not hard, but doing it well is not easy. Like being able to leave like a nice corduroy trail.
Laying corduroy.
In fact, speaking of, let's show them the corduroy video. This is called Making Corduroy. And it's just a video of us driving through the trail at night. Snowcats have a big blade on the front, like a dozer blade. And then they have a tiller in the rear that basically just lays down snow that looks like corduroy. Now, you got to keep in mind that these snowcats are roughly, with the blade, they're about 16 feet wide, so they're huge. They've got anywhere between 300 and 400 horsepower. Dave and I are convoying up the canyon road in the snowcats, and Dave's learning how to run his and doing great, and we're having a good time.
Gray guy, red guy.
We get to the cabin. We park the cats. We spend the nights. Great night with the family at the cabin. I think I have a picture of the cats when we got to the cabin. Got my brand new piston bully parked at the cabin, looking cool,
sharp.
looking awesome. And then the next morning, we wake up, and what do? We go
Snowcat time.
Gray guy, red guy, we take them out.
We left gray guy back, right?
No, we took them both. We did not take them both. You're right.
Thank you.
We're going to correct each other probably a lot on the story because, well, he's
We haven't
probably
told
gonna
it in
correct
3
me.
years.
Yeah, well, yeah.
There's going to be things that get brought to light that we haven't even thought about in 3 years.
So me, Dave, and my daughter Charlie all
Charlie,
pile
yeah.
into Red Guy, the new cat. And we go up and we are determined to plow that road, plow the drifty, gnarly section of the road, because we've plowed every other road up there, no problem. But we want to cut through this drift and open up access to cross-country skiers, snowmobilers. We are determined to make it happen. So we go up 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon and we are pushing snow. Do you have a clip of rolling the snow?
Oh, yeah. Now, for your viewing pleasure, I've done this in slow motion. You see, I'm standing in the trench. He plows through that snow, and I go for a ride down the hill. Good times, right? Anyway, this is the part he's telling you about. How we're plowing through the snow. Yeah, you like that? See it? Reverse, forward, reverse, forward.
That's a gnarly cliff. Now, right now the snow is not as deep as it was back when we did this because this was in late January. We had tons of heavy snowpack. So we're pushing the road. This is the road. Now, one thing you have to understand is this winter has been ridiculously mild. As you can see, this right here is a road that goes along the mountainside here. It's cut into basically the cliff. And as the wind blows up here, we're basically at the top of the mountain, it creates a drift. Now this drift normally is 12 feet tall, if not taller, and it's just like sheer cliff.
It's
So-
still fairly gnarly to get through right now. And
Yeah, you'll see we start sinking. So you'll see there's a little bit of mountain above the road and a lot of mountain below the road. Now, as we start walking along here, you're gonna see us punching through this drift and you're gonna see big like piles of snow above the road. As we were plowing this, we were actually at the bottom trying to plow up this way to be able to open this up for winter access. And you're gonna see exactly where it all went down. This gives you an idea of how far down it is. It kind of looks like just regular hill all the way down, but it's not. It's like a steep hill, and then in the middle of that hill is anywhere between a 200 and 500 foot cliff, just straight up and down. So
Turns out it's a much bigger cliff with no snow. And here we have all the broken glass.
really steep, really gnarly, really rocky, lots of obstacles. I'm gonna show you exactly where it happened. It's like I said, me, Dave, and Charlie.
It's actually exactly like this. Except I'm you. Because
Yep.
you're driver,
Yep.
Charlie's here. I'm there. I'm looking out the window over the cliff.
Yep. And yeah, kind of, in fact, we got to the point where we were hanging the one part of the track over the cliff.
Hanging pretty good over the cliff.
Yeah. But you got to realize we've done this before. We've been up in these mountains. We've had these cats on really gnarly inclines, and we've never had an issue where it's slid off because they have really, really good traction.
Yep.
However, a snowcat has more traction going forward and reverse than it does sideways. In fact, they have very little traction sideways because the tracks just slide with the snow
They're
rather
not
than
great at
against
hockey
it.
stopping.
They don't hockey stop at all. We're pushing along, and the weather's kind of starting to fall apart. It's not great weather, and that's when the drift breaks. This drift right above us, that really isn't a drift this year. It's mostly just rock cliff, sloughed off. It took the machine and pushed it over kind of like this way and started angling off the edge. So the drift above the road where we're plowing here, the drift kind of just sloughs off, and it takes my snowcat and kind of pushes it,
Just a little bit.
pushes the blade and the nose over the cliff. It stops. Luckily, it doesn't slide all the way because remember, my daughter, at the time she was
Yes.
7-year-old daughter, was sitting in the snowcat with us. So rather than risk anything else, we stop. It's 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Kind of get stuck, and we're like, we're not moving an inch. We are not going to risk sliding this thing down the hill, especially with a little girl.
I think you did put it in reverse once, and that's when we realized
Yeah.
she was in need of help.
Yep. We did not want to risk sliding off the cliff at all, especially with my baby girl in there. So we parked it, and then we walked
We hoofed it.
all the way down to the cabin. You guys,
In fact, you took off faster because the sun was going down. So me
yes.
and Charlie stayed back making coyote sounds to scare away the real coyotes. While Dave jogged back to the cabin, found out the battery to the other snowcat was dead. So by the time we finally made it back to the cabin,
right, it was dead.
you had it jumped and ready to go for me.
so
Then we left Charlie at the cabin.
keep in mind, this is walking probably roughly a mile, maybe a half mile in powder snow. And by the time they get back, it's dark. Charlie's freezing cold. She's exhausted. We're exhausted. So I'm at the cabin trying to get my dead snowcat started. 24-volt battery system, dead as a doornail. it takes a while. But Dave and I don't want to leave the snowcat on the cliff overnight because, well, that's just not a great situation, not a great place to leave it. And we were worried that maybe the snow was going to continue to slide and push it all the way off the edge. So here is what the snowcat looked like when we first got to it. That's it, hanging off. Keep in mind the road is only about the same width as the snowcat, and we've already slid off 3 or 4 feet. So that track on this side is hanging over 3 or 4 feet. We pulled the other machine up right behind it and hooked the chain to it. Started backing up, and as we were backing up, everything was going well. Dave and the red cat right here, me and the gray one, he put it in reverse, I had it in reverse. We were kind of getting back on the trail. So I get in and try to maneuver it a couple more times just to see what happens, and that's when it slides another foot or two. So it's completely off the edge. So then, in this picture, go ahead and zoom in, you'll see there's a chain hooked to the front of my blade. Well, the blade of the gray snowcat, because we went back to get it to recover the red snowcat. So I climb in the gray snowcat, and I hook a chain to the red snowcat. Dave jumps in the red snowcat to kind of drive it as I pull it backwards. The plan is, the gray snowcat was pretty well planted on the road.
Very well.
It had good traction. We'd already carved that section out, no big deal. So the plan was basically to use the chain and the gray snowcat to pull the red snowcat back up onto the road, which in theory should work because the gray snowcat's got plenty of power, and between the two of them, the chain was more or less just kind of a safety to keep the red cat from sliding. So we go for it. Hook the chain, start going, and we're pulling. Things are going well.
Barely giving her a little bit of gas so the red guy's tracks will start rolling backwards.
Kind of starting to climb back on the road. Everything is working. And that's
We
when
found the weak link in the chain.
literally the weak link and the chain snapped. And all hell broke loose.
Literally broke loose. The whole
Yeah,
snow.
it was in a split second, basically, as the chain broke, my cat continued to go backwards, and Dave's, the back end of his cat, did it go off the back end or the front
Yeah,
end?
it sloughed down to the right, and the rest of that drift started pushing down to the right. So it immediately started bringing the whole cat down. So I gave it some more gas, and it just dug deep. It didn't go anywhere. It just was loose snow underneath me. So then I was waiting for the front to kind of turn around so I could throw the blade down, which kind of happened. So I threw the blade down, and it just went right into the wash of wet, rolling snow. So there was no traction, no brake from the blade. Traction wasn't there on the tracks, and started going for a nice sleigh ride.
So I watched as the tracks on his cat are just panic
Spinning.
revving through the avalanche, essentially, and his cat is kind of starting to spin a little bit. And the last thing that I saw was I saw the snowcat and Dave go backwards off this cliff, looked at Dave, kind of made eye contact, saw his headlights, and then he was gone. Keep in mind, it's pitch black. It's a really dark night. And then I'm sitting here,
Headlights.
I watched Dave and his headlights just go down. And it was, at that point, it wasn't sheer cliff yet. It was kind of just straight like this. And there's rocks and trees and all kinds of stuff. And so I'm thinking, okay, he's going to get stopped by a rock, a tree, something's going to get him. And man, this is when I jump out of my snowcat and run over the edge of the cliff. And I see, I get there just in time to see his headlights completely disappear into the darkness. He had slid from the road to the cliff, which is another 300 or 400 feet, and I could just hear this awful noise of the snowcat bang, bang, hitting rocks, and it's getting quieter and quieter, and then the headlights disappear, and I see it just disappear, and then I hear a huge bang, and then silence. And so I walk over to the edge of the cliff, and I start. So we're pretty religious people, and prayer is a big part of our lives. And so I start screaming at the sky and telling God to it's the worst. I start screaming at the sky and telling God to save Dave. And it was very, very not reverent prayer. It was just me saying, like demanding that God protect him. And then I got done with my prayer, and walked back to my snowcat and said, well, I actually stood on the edge of the cliff and I had two choices. I had to decide whether to try to slide down the hill on my butt and get to Dave to see if I could find him. And that was going to be a bad idea because it was a cliff and it was rocky, and I probably would have taken the same fall the snowcat did, but it was, I needed to get to him to see, if he's pinned or something, what to do. And so my other option was to jump in my snowcat and drive down the road and to the pond below the cliff, which would have been roughly probably a 7-minute snowcat drive. Actually, probably a 10-minute snowcat drive if I didn't take the shortcut, which is basically down a smaller cliff. So I ran to the cliff, I ran to my snowcat, I ran to the cliff, and then I just felt something. I felt instantly, I felt, okay, get back in your cat, just drive down there. And so that was the decision I made. It was almost like I could hear my voice or a voice clearly tell me, don't go off the cliff, which is probably a good thing. So I got my snowcat and I hammered down and I'm driving down the road.
So the second I heard the chain break, I gave it a little bit more throttle, see if I had any traction in the tracks, and I didn't. So as it pushed me down the hill, it started kind of drifting towards the cliff, and I was like, perfect, I'm gonna be able to put my blade down, it's gonna stop me. Well, as soon as I put the blade all the way down, it couldn't touch the solid ground. I was drifting on top of an avalanche. That's when I knew things were about to get real western. So it starts drifting a little bit more towards the cliff, and I'm in the cab. Of course, I'm not buckled up. I start saying a prayer, start saying, "You make me look like a baby on your YouTube."
Join the party.
So I start praying that if there's any way I can get out of this and stop the snowcat, please help me. Please help me live through this. And at that moment, my rear end, or my front end, hit a rock, which spun me backwards. And I'm sliding. The cliff is behind me. I'm looking right at Dave, and I'm gaining speed a lot faster. I'm just like, well, this is going to be a wild ride. This could be the end. That is the one thought is in my head. Is like, this is probably how I go out. And I'm looking at Dave, and all of a sudden I flip over this cliff, and I just see my friend disappear. My headlights are in the sky, and it's just blacked out. I'm rotating this whole cliff, and it felt like an eternity falling off this cliff. I was
Free
falling
fall.
Free fall. So it's making all the sounds, grinding against rocks. Hit the last rock that flips me upside down, and it's just silent. And I'm falling. It's pitch black everywhere, so I don't even know where the ground is. And at this point, I'm like, I'm gonna hit the ground at some time. And it felt like an eternity. I said in my prayer, I said, this is how it ends. I'm gonna see you soon. God, please have someone take care of my girls. But he must have heard the first prayer at the top of the hill, where I said, please help me for a way out of this, because it rotated about 3/4 of a backflip. The blade hit into the ground at the perfect angle where, since I was bouncing around the cab without my seatbelt on, it ejected me out the windshield, just above the blade and below the roof line, which is the only way I would have made it out of that without getting completely banged up. And it spit me out into a soft avalanche that was still rolling. So I'm under the snow, and all my avalanche training kicks in because I've got a lot of that. But I remember, you swim and you make a bubble, right? Well, I swim just enough to get about to my waist above the snow by the time it stops. And I'm sitting there facing down the hill. I turn around, I can see the snowcat rubble behind me. And I have a good long time to just sit there and wonder how in the world I got out. I was stunned. I did not expect to live through that. But my first instinct was, hey, your friend's gonna try and dive bomb off this cliff. You should probably call him, because I think we used up all of our blessings for one night. And so I call him, and he sends me right to voicemail. This guy.
And I'm cruising down the road for maybe 30 seconds, and I feel my phone ringing. Now, one thing that you need to know about this is, at this section of road, in this part of the mountain, there's never service. Like it's not even like 1 bar, 1X trying. It just gives you the 0 bars, no service, nothing's happening. But my phone's ringing, and I'm like, that's wild. Pull it out, and it's Dave. And it's Dave calling me. So I'm thinking, is Dave calling me from heaven? What's happening? I literally, my first thoughts were like, this this is weird. Is he calling? Is his phone just going off from like? I thought he was dead and his phone was calling me for some reason. And so I answer, and it's Dave, and he's like, "Why didn't you answer?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I just tried calling you." I guess my phone was on Do Not Disturb. I don't know what happened, but
He denied my phone call.
I denied his call.
Calling from the other side, and he denied me.
Yeah. And I'm like, "Dude, are you okay?" And he's like, "I think so." You know what you said?
Yep.
I said, "I think
I
so."
was literally still sitting in snow solid up to my waist.
So I said, "All right, I'm coming." So at that point, I was able to like not fully panic because I was getting ready to basically drive my snowcat off of a cliff a little bit less aggressive, but enough for me to be able to get to Dave faster. Probably wouldn't have been a great place. So I still did turn down a really aggressive hill, drove over. It took me maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes to get to the bottom of the pond. And I see just this pile of parts. This pile of parts and a couple of lights, and it's at the base of this cliff. And I'm like, holy shit, is Dave there? And so I get out of my snowcat and I run across the frozen pond and start trudging up this hill, which is 3-4 feet of powder snow, and running up a powdery, snowy hill is not easy. And I hear Dave and we're yelling at each other, and I get there, and that's when we took this video.
Swim.
You just swam away from a 20,000-pound snowcat rolling on top of you?
I ended up to your right. There's that little divot.
Right here?
One more divot over.
Oh yeah, that's your body. The good news is you didn't come up short on your backflip this time. You overshot it.
Yeah.
Holy sh**.
The good news is really that I got a Char snowboard still, so you shouldn't have to know.
Dude, you just came off that 50-foot cliff. I might be 100. That is really,
I think the light's doing me some favors, making it look bigger.
I don't care. That's a cliff.
As Dave was falling off the cliff and right at the bottom of the cliff, rather than landing perfectly upside down, the snowcat kind of landed at an angle where the blade was able to stop some of the impact and then pop the windshield out and eject Dave down the hill. Where we saw he landed was at least 100 yards away from the snowcat, maybe even more. He was a long ways away from the machine. The windshield just popped out clean. You can see kind of where his body impacted it and just sent him down the hill. The snowcat landed on a giant rock. It was the worst case scenario for the way that where it landed, but the way that it landed and the way that it spun around was the actual best case scenario, because it kind of cushioned his fall and threw him onto a nice, I mean, there was no harm done to Dave, like not a scratch, right?
I bumped my knee.
Bumped your knee.
Had a nice black and blue knee, but I mean, for what it was, getting a bump on my knee was nothing compared to what should have happened.
So this is a picture of it's a dark picture of the snowcat the night that it happened, right after it happened. You can see the whole cab is smashed in because it landed upside down, and then it landed, once it hit the rock upside down, it bounced back onto its tracks. So when we got to it, it was laying on its tracks, but it had completely rotated at least once. And then we have another video here.
What is that?
Oh, you know, that's the built-in escape device windshield.
Did you hit the eject button?
I must have. I think I sat on it.
Eject a windshield, because your cat is 400 feet up that hill.
I think the windshield wanted to race me down the hill.
It beat you.
Oh, by a long shot.
The best part is I don't think that was there when I walked up here, because I definitely would have seen that. Holy.
So the windshield popped out, allowed Dave to fly out. The windshield flew way down the hill below the cat. We got there, and it surprisingly started right up.
So this is where all the magic happened last night. You can see the boys on the hill trying to get her down, and my personal favorite part, the windshield. Oh, it broke. Is that your sled? That's my sled, bro. That's your sled? I got bad news, though. I got bad news. I got really bad news because I got glass in my finger.
Wasn't running.
We just told that whole part of the story, and he's keeping secrets. Dave has this hidden album of videos and pictures that he got.
I was crying enough.
Anything else you'd like to share with the class?
Film this. Here, I'll show you this one.
R.I.P. Snowcat. And maybe my legs can't film yet. Don't tell my wife.
I didn't know he took this video. This is news to me.
Nothing's broken.
Good way to find that.
Snowcat. Did lose my hat though.
I had to check on my teeth. In the video, I'm just like, all my teeth are there. I think I did chip one.
I had no idea you shot this.
My hair looked great though.
It looked great.
Except for that snowcat.
Watch me check my teeth.
Checking his teeth. Oh my gosh.
Did lose my hat though.
And there's this one here. It was for you not to tell my wife. Because you didn't answer, so I filmed a video, and in that 12 seconds is when I got all the next.
I had no idea that he shot these videos. This is, you gotta realize he's still stuck in the snow where it ejected into, and he's trying to call me, and I wasn't able to answer, and so he started shooting a video. That's really cool. I had no idea that he had that. As you can see, and as you can see from the terrain, Dave should be dead. The way that the accident happened, there's no reason why anybody should have been able to survive that. Snowcats have seatbelts. Dave wasn't wearing his seatbelt. And in this situation, it's actually probably a good thing that he wasn't wearing it, because it allowed him to get thrown out the windshield and into soft snow rather than having to ride out and land upside down on a boulder. It was about as rough of a fall as you could have up in the mountain there. There's literally probably not a bigger cliff that you could fall off. And by looking at the terrain, as you guys can see, it's
I go big.
Nasty. Yeah,
I go
and
big.
fortunately, rather than going all the way to the bottom of the hill, he was able to kind of land at the bottom of the cliff, or kind of land mid-cliff, because a couple hundred yards further down is a pond that was frozen over, that had he landed upside down in that, he would have drowned. And it's everything happened the way it was supposed to. Everything lined up perfectly for Dave to be able to survive rather than get crushed and seriously injured, or more likely die. And there is the Snowcat at the base of that giant cliff. That, and then the rock right at the bottom of it. So it was quite the fall. This was the next day when we went to go recover it. You can see the whole cab is smashed, the buckets, the blade is twisted, the chassis twisted. It's just an absolutely terrifying sight.
Right there.
So that showed you where he landed, how he crashed, and then the next picture in my phone is a picture of
That's how you know it's about to get fun.
yeah, snatch block rigging that shows you how to multiply the power of a winch line, because we needed to figure out how to get the Snowcat off the mountain. So one thing to keep in mind is the mountain is technically closed this time of year to motorized vehicles except for snowmobiles. Now, having a cabin up there, we're allowed to have winter access, which means we can have different types of vehicles up there. But crashing a Snowcat is not something that the Forest Service, is going to be too pumped about. So our goal is to get it off the mountain as soon as we possibly can. So we head up the next day with a whole convoy. We head up with the other gray Snowcat and our Sisu Nasu. The Snowcat was actually still running, surprisingly. We were able to drive it. It was running enough. We drove it to the bottom of the cliff and the only way to get back over to the road was to go across the pond. So we started easing it across the pond, and it broke through the ice and instantly became very, very sunk and waterlogged.
I'll get right here.
Hey, don't blow the cover. No. Risky business, hands.
We spent 3, maybe 4 days up there trying to get the snowcat out and using snatch blocks, cables, winches, snowcats, other vehicles, and probably 10 of our guys working nonstop, because once it went into the water, it would no longer run and it would have to be just drug out by sheer brute strength. And so we started hooking the cables and the winches to it and literally pulled it out one piece at a time. We ripped the blade off. We ripped the tracks off, and it would move maybe a couple inches at a time before we would have to completely redo all the rigging, all the winches, everything, and just pole by pole by pole, we ended up pulling it kind of back up the hill above the pond and then drug it sideways across the hill. And we got to the point where we were like pretty much right close to being able to tug it out. And that's when it sunk back into the water and then froze. So the last night, the tracks froze into the water and we pretty much done. Like, it wasn't moving anymore. So we had to wait for the one final day, go up and get the tracks and rip the tracks off, pretty much one piece of rubber at a time. And then we were able to finally get the snowcat over to the road and drug it out with the gray snowcat down the mountain road. And right as soon as we got it to a point where we could get the wrecker to come up and pick it, the gray snowcat engine blew up. So after 4 days of like continuous pulling and pulling and pulling, and without the gray snowcat, that snowcat the red one would still be up there. And literally on the way back down the canyon road, after everything was all said and done, after some of our guys almost got hypothermia, we broke, thousands of feet of cable and ropes and all this recovery equipment. The final straw was the gray snowcat engine just quit. And that was it. That was the end of our snowcatting for a couple of years. This is a pretty life-changing experience. We got back to the cabin the night after the accident, or the night of the accident, and kind of had to explain to the wives what happened. And
So I was going to try not to say anything. You came in crying.
I was very grateful.
I was crying a little bit.
Yeah, I came back and explained to our wives what had happened, and they obviously were pretty shook up. The whole family was shook up. About a month after this, well, no, not even a month, probably a few weeks after it happened, after we got it out, I got a letter from the Forest Service, and I guess one of the other cabin owners up there had gone to the crash site and taken pictures and sent it to the Forest Service, and so then we had to deal with the legal side of it. Final part of the story is, to me, probably the most interesting, and it's this. Obviously, we believe that there was guardian angels involved in protecting Dave and helping him through this accident. And oddly enough, about a month or so ago, a friend of mine connected me with a psychic medium. Now, you may think that psychic mediums are fortune tellers and they're crazy and it's all bullshit. And that's kind of the way that I felt about them before I actually had an experience to talk to one as well. A medium is somebody who provides an opportunity for spirits to speak with the living. But I sat down with this gal named Isabella, and they're able to communicate with spirits. And they get a bad rap because, there's been fortune tellers and gypsies in the past who use it to try to trick people and con people. And here's my disclaimer. Whether you believe it or you don't, that's fine. I believe in what this lady told me because it was very specific and very detailed regarding this story. So I'm having this session with her, and my dad passed away about 13, 14 years ago. And in this session with my medium, Isabella, my dad showed up and was speaking with her, and he was relaying messages through her to me. Now, you got to understand, Isabella knows nothing about my life. I've never met her. She has no idea who I am. I have no idea who she is. But she started to tell me very personal things about my life that only my family and especially my dad would know. And so we're having this meeting, and I'm thinking, wow, this is pretty interesting. Like, there's something to this. And then she goes on to tell me about my great-grandpa, a guy named Wilkie Galbraith, and my grandma, my mom's mom, Anita Tanner, who have obviously all passed away. And she says, there's some people here who are telling me that they're your guardian angels. And she explained them very clearly, and I discovered that it was my grandma, my dad, and my great-grandpa, which was my grandma's dad, Wilkie Galbraith. And she said they're trying to show me something about an accident that happened where somebody could have died and they saved him. And I was like, what is they talking? Like, I'm not, I live a pretty risky life, and I almost die all the time. And she says, well, this incident, they're showing me that they grabbed you or somebody from underneath the arms, and they lifted you away from danger. They pulled you out of danger and saved you from dying. And instantly I was like, oh, and I said to her, I believe that's my friend Dave in the snowcat accident. And then she confirmed with the spirits that she was communicating with, and they said, yes, that was absolutely it. And I'm going to share with you this clip because I recorded the whole session that I had with her. This is something that's super, super, important and kind of sacred to me. So I would just ask that you guys be respectful in your comments and stuff on this. Please don't tear into this, because I'm being pretty open and vulnerable with you and sharing this with you. And you gotta keep in mind that Isabella knew nothing about Dave's accident. This was 3 years after the fact, almost, that this medium was able to tell me about this experience.
It's crazy. When Dave pulled me into his office, told me about his experience with his medium, when they explained how they saved me and pulled me out by my armpits and out the back is exactly how it felt when I was in that snowcat. I was being bounced around, and it's almost, I bounced forward, backwards, hitting the ceiling, looking back, and for me to get basically ejected and pulled straight out of the windshield, that's really how it felt. And I hadn't really thought about it until she said it, but thinking back, I can almost feel like I was actually pulled out of that snowcat and put in a safe place, because it's the only way I would have ended up where I ended up. Like, I should have hit that blade on the way out. I should have bounced around the cab a little bit more, but when you see it, it makes sense.
Your daughter?
What's also weird,
Alicia,
is I never met Dave's dad. I've heard a few stories about him here and there, but he passed away maybe a year before I met Dave. For some reason, I've always felt a connection with him. He used to be into falcons and birds of prey and training in falconry, is how you say that, I guess. Anyway, every time I see a bird flying around in the sky, whether it's a hawk or a falcon or an eagle, if for some reason Dave's dad comes in my mind, which is strange because I never met the guy. I have a feeling that he got double duty. He's got to be Dave's guardian angel, and he's got to be mine at the same time. So it was really cool to hear all this.
As I'm speaking with Isabella, the medium, she continues to mention that one of the spirits that she's speaking with, actually two of them, my great-grandpa and my grandma, keep on bringing up this accident that happened where people could have died, and I'm trying to figure out what she's talking about. And then she gets into more detail, and you can see this is where she basically talks about what exactly happened.
okay, I gotta ask this because this is now the third time. So this accident in the snow, did you maybe feel somebody like pulling up underneath your armpits or like right in this area getting you?
It was my best friend Dave, and yeah, he was definitely pulled from death.
From somebody that nobody could see.
Yes, he fell off a cliff and should have died, and he didn't.
Okay, because they're showing me like underneath the arms or like pulling up here.
It pulled him out of a.
Absolutely, they say that was us. That was us. That was us.
Jeez.
There's this funny saying that is probably old, but like my guardian angel feels like they're on crack or something like that. That's the sense that I'm getting brought. Like, oh my God, we have to always be watchful. They don't mind, but it's like keeping them on our toes, keeping them on our toes, keeping them on our toes. Except for this lady, the grandmother, I think she was very capable of that.
Basically, our guardian angels are on crack. Moral of the story is, if you're going to be stupid, you better have good guardian angels. Because
we got the best ones.
We got the best ones. And I'll show you a picture of my great-grandpa Wilkie, the one who Isabella claims to be kind of my main guardian angel that watches over not only me, but obviously my best friend. But guys, it went from what could have been a very tragic experience to a pretty incredible faith-building experience for both of us and our families. Because when you're that close to dying, you view things a little bit differently. You understand that things do actually happen for a reason. We're not just on this planet in sheer chaos and everything's just happening to us and no control over things. Like, for me at least, it helped me understand that there's a bigger picture and that there's always, we're never alone. Not to get too religious or spiritual on you, but I do believe that God sends some form of guardian angels to watch over us and protect us, especially when we ask for it, which we always do. Anytime we go do something that could be risky, or even just standard road trips, we pray and ask that God sends angels to protect us while we're traveling and our families while we're gone. And I think, as you've probably seen from this prayer, or from this, as you could probably see in this video, God answers. Not only does he hear, but he answers those prayers. And in this case, he saved Dave's life. Okay, guys, I gotta ask you one thing. You sat there and watched us cry like a couple of so I feel like that's at least worth a subscribe, right?
Definitely worth a subscribe.
We shed tears for you.
We did.
Those were actual real tears. This is an emotional thing for us to talk about.
Yes.
And I promise you, I'm the last person who would ever fake a cry.
But you know what? It strengthened our bond,
100%.
But what I want to know is, probably happened to some of you, similar stories. Having guardian angels isn't just for us. It's probably for everybody. So if you got a similar story, I want to see it in the comments below.
I like that idea.
Huh.
Do you believe in guardian angels? If you've ever had an experience, obviously,
I do.
We're not going to have you just drop your quick little experience in a comment. But if there's something you can tell us about in the comments, do it. We'd love to hear about it.
I like the way you said it better. I was going to have write out the whole story.
Write out the whole story. I don't care. Send us an email to mypotato@underwear.com.
Hey, how did you remember my email address?
Guys, when we put up a video like this, obviously we do take the time to go read a bunch of the comments. So, especially on one like this, where we're asking you to share something that's fairly personal, just know that we will dive in and read through some of the comments and respond when and where we can. So, we always love to hear from you. So, hit the like button, drop a comment, subscribe, and maybe next video we won't cry.
Yeah.
I can't believe we cried.
You know what? I'll cry every time God answers a prayer, I think.
Yeah, it's true.